Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Vampire Counts led by Manuel von Karstein and the Empire who's going to be led by Boris Toadbringer. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So here in the front line, we do have 4 groups of Graveguard in total. One of them, of course, is going to be the Stearnsmen, and all of the Graveguard are the sword and shield variant. So historically, this was kind of the way to go against the Empire. You get the shields against their powder. You're going to be seeing handgunners, silver bullets, Sterling's Revenge, all kinds of tricky business, and oftentimes free company militia as well. So having the silver peels, what the hell is that? Silver shield in the past was definitely very strong, and they honestly do really well against Imperial infantry. So if you see flagellants, if you see halberds, spearmen with shields, these Graveguard are going to cut those guys to pieces. However, the one thing they do really struggle against is going to be greatswords, especially if they're supported by the Lore of Life. So these guys are going to be marching in the front, hopefully doing some pretty good work. However, you can see my opponent did bring a couple great swords, although he does have flagellants and other units like that. The Graveguard. Man, I need more coffee, guys. I'm sorry, I'm struggling here. But anyways, matchups that the Graveguard are usually good against, so they're going to be good against some of these other troops. It's definitely just going to be the great swords that give me some trouble. In the back, I do have a couple groups of spearmen as well to help out in the cav fight. So if there's Demogryph Knights or other things like that, you send the spearmen up and around, you support your cav, and definitely gives you some good utility. I just like having a couple groups of spears in general. Some Fellbats. So in total, we do have 2 Fellbats, which are going to be hunting powder weapons, going after Sterling's Revenge, as well as the silver bullets and things like that. And honestly, if there's like a cav charge coming in as well from Knights of the Blazing Sun or something like that, you can also break their charge with Fellbats, which is definitely some MLG stuff. For our Lord, we do have the Lord of Baldness, Manfred von Karstein, with Spirit Leech, Fate of Unit, Invocation, and Raise Dead. We also have 2 Blood Knights, so we're going with the Blood Knights. Definitely think they're pretty cool. Looking forward to seeing how they fight up against the Demogryph Knights here. And that is pretty much it. Looks like there are some hounds on the far side, direwolves here, and direwolves in the deep vanguard. So for my opponent's army, I think it really effectively illustrates how the metagame has shifted for the Empire in this matchup. So like I said, before you would often see light wizards, a bunch of guns. They would be trying to focus down your high value targets. You wouldn't see as many like great swords, and maybe you'd see like the Royal or Fights or some demis, but you wouldn't see like multiple groups of heavy cav, at least from my anecdotal experience. I'm not saying this is like empirical and it's just how it was, but that was just what I was used to seeing. However, you can see the Empire players have been playing like really heavy just cores in the front line. So 2 great swords. He's got halberds. He has a Jade Wizard with healing. He's got Boris Toadbringer on foot just to be a footlord and grind out that frontline fight. He does also have flagellants on the wing supported by halberds. So a very aggressive infantry army. There's no kind of soft spots, which is essentially what I'm trying to articulate here. Whereas before there was like, a bunch of juicy targets in the back lines. So normally that's why I bring these direwolves, right? You bring the direwolves to hunt down those squishy targets, the Fellbats to disrupt the powder weapons. But here there's not going to be as many good targets for them. However, I do have, a ton of Graveguard. I got Manfred, I got Blood Knight. So it's really going to come down to their performance here. So my forces are going to be marching forward. The Fellbats will be flying overhead to do some scouting. Of course, these Sterling's Revenge are a shrouded unit. They do have the stock ability. You can't really see them until they expose themselves or start shooting at something. So Manfred's going to be hiding in the forest as well, looking for targets. I definitely have some good unit targets I could be dropping on the Knights of the Blazing Sun. That's a very good pick for my opponent because the Knights of the Blazing Sun, if you take a look, they do fire damage. But on top of that, they also have magic res. So Fate of Unit and Spirit Leech effects aren't going to be as good against them as they would against like Reichsguard or things like that. So I really like that pick for my opponent. But yeah, Vampire's just going to be moving forward. The Blood Knights are just going to be circling in the front because, going back here is going to be a bit of a wash, I feel, because he does have halberds and demis and like so much stuff back here that he can just detach his halberds and intercept my Blood Knights, which is going to be a pretty ugly engagement for me. So just squaring up, we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding. As I do get in here, you can see the Sterling's Revenge taking some pot shots at my Graveguard here in the front line. And the hounds in the back are just kind of lurking. So here are the Knights of the Blazing Sun. It looks like they're going to be trying to get a free Rohirrim charge in the front. They probably will. I'm a little bit out of position. I guess the Blood Knights are getting ready to countercharge, but I should have been a little bit higher and tighter. So cool charge for my opponent. Not going to do a whole lot, but it looks so gangster. I think Knights of the Blazing Sun are just one of the coolest looking units in the game. Like their charges, there's few things that can rival that. And their shields with like the Mimridia thing over there. God, they're just so cool looking. But anyways, they get a huge charge. Actually do some decent damage to my Graveguard. So very, very solid stuff for my opponent. I do respond with the Buna to make sure I at least give something back. But again, my opponent, if he responds quickly with a regrowth, it's not going to do a whole lot because the magic resist just heavily nullifies that. Anyways, Graveguard in the front line are engaging my Blood Knights. Thought about getting a free charge in here as well. Sterling's Revenge, a little bit of pathing problems, so they're going to be coming forward here, and they do get intercepted by the Graveguard, which is going to be good. The other Graveguard have engaged against the Greatswords, which is going to be nice, but they're not going to do too good here. Although these are the Stearnsmen, the Blood Knights coming in with a layering charge. I wanted to just punt through that front line because I knew I could beat all of this other infantry. It's just the Greatswords that I'm mainly going to be struggling with. But Albert's push into support as well, so my opponent really kind of bolstering his formation. I get some really good damage on those Greatswords out of the gate, so that was definitely very solid. And the Fellbats will be attacking from behind as well, and I basically attack the Royal Outdoor Fights to try and screw up their AI and give them some trouble. In the back, the Sterling's Revenge are in pretty good shape. They're just going to sit and shoot. But the Felbats are, this is what they're cut out for. Also, my Direwolves, who I have lurking in the shadows, are going to be coming for them. He does have some supporting troops he can send in. Flagellant's definitely losing to the Graveguard, so that's a good situation here. These ones did take a charge from the Knights of the Blazing Sun, but he's really just kind of disregarding the back line and just sending everything he can to the front, which is good. Making sure to maximize his Earthblood, so you can see the Greatswords getting healed, these ones getting healed. And they're definitely mulching through my Sternsmen. I mean, the Sternsmen are putting up a great fight, but yeah, they're going to lose this battle in the long game. It looks like Invocation of Nehek going down as well, which is going to heal Skeleton Warriors. All these troops, Manfred definitely very happy. These Blood Knights did get a huge charge on those Flagellants and were able to just massacre them. So very even battle so far. We do clear up the Sterling's Revenge, but he does get the Knights of the Blazing Sun. He gets a really good charge here, which is going to massacre my backline harass. Although, on the flanks, I did manage to get a massive flank with the Skeleton Spear, so we're going to be coming in and trying to pin his Knights in. Hopefully a bit of a hammer and anvil type tactic, although these guys aren't the best hammer, that's for sure. Skeleton Spears going to be going in and trying to disrupt his cav and his missiles and different things like that. But even though we are in the back line, things are going well there. Manfred and company, we summoned some zombies to deal with these Flagellants. The Spearmen are going to be going to bolster the front line because I don't really have a lot of presence here, and the Earthbloods are doing very good. The Blood Knights, I don't want to go around the flanks like I said because of the halberds, although at this point it probably would be a better idea considering how he's deployed his army, but I was basically just cycle charging the Greatswords. You can see I do pull the Blood Knights back. I'm just going to be going right back in, trying to just crack those guys because I'm losing this battle so heavily in the front line. Looks like they did get a little bit of one of those limp charges, which is unfortunate. However, there are some Knights of the Blazing Sun nearby, so this will be a good fight for my Blood Knights, who do have the Invocation of Nehek. But the bounce power is slipping away from me a little bit. The frontline engagement's just going horribly. I really, if you look at this build on the selection screen, it was just missing a ton of AP, so I think that was what I really needed in the front line, was to get through some of those guys with some armor piercing. So, Skeleton Warriors are still fighting, doing an okay job considering. The Flagellants on the flanks have been flattened, so that's going really well for me. Flattened here, I do have my Blood Knights kind of cleaning up and trying to get some free kills here. The other Blood Knights do get a nice little charge into these Greatswords who have overlapped here, and we also do catch the Knights of the Blazing Sun on that counter charge, so they're going to be able to swiggity-swooty those Knights of the Blazing Sun and potentially get me back. You can see the bounce power is creeping a little bit here. Manfred dropping another, that was actually a big mistake. I was trying to click the Royal Altar of Griphites, but unfortunately I clicked the Halberds, which is a little bit of a slip up there, but it's all good. So the Blood Knights falling back. I did see the Royal Altar of Griphites kind of creeping out, so I pull back. I'm going to be countercharging them if I'm not mistaken, or coming into these Greatswords again, just trying to grind those guys down. It's so hard to really get through them without the true armor piercing in the front line. But in the back, I do get a little bit of harass on my Blood Knights. We're just can't believe these Sterling's Revenge are still fighting. Absolute insanity. But the Spearmen are kind of fighting them. I'm using the Blood Knights to just harass and try and get some free kills. Down here, it's going okay. These 11 Flagellants holding on for dear life. As far as infantry goes, I do have these Sternsmen still fighting here in the middle, but my 4 groups of Graveguard just got pounded. Like, they just got put in a trash can so hard. It was really, really tough for sure. But anyways, Manfred is going to pop the Master of the Black Arts, which is going to give him power reserves and magic, so I definitely have some good magic available to me. Manfred's, yeah, pretty much full health. He doesn't take much damage this game. Could potentially do some dueling with Boris with Spirit Leech. I do have the support of a lot of spears and infantry here, which isn't terrible. Anyways, Knights of the Blazing Sun and Flagellants doing a good job cleaning up the flanks. The Blood Knights coming in with a fat charge right there, just sandwiching all those halberds and those spears and those other units, so doing some really, really good damage there, potentially breaking them. They are shaken, but they're going to hold, which is really, really unfortunate. And the Royal Altar of Griphites do get a counter charge, which is going to be really unfortunate for my Blood Knights. But I do have another group out here of 36, who I'm looking to kind of pick a fight with those Griphites with. But they do have that regrowth, which is going to give them 22% physical resist. Beautiful stuff there. And here come the Blood Knights. So my Blood Knights are going to be piling in. The other group's coming in as well with a big charge. But he has so many halberds. He has 83 halberds over here. Manfred, I think, was able to squeak away, but I mean, my Blood Knights have been doing okay throughout the game. They've gotten a lot of kills, 91 on these guys. They've killed Flagellants, they've killed a lot of Demogryph Knights. They actually got a beautiful charge right here, and they're actually massacring the Royal Altar of Griphites. So the Knights of the Red keep doing really well for themselves. Manfred supporting here as well. He is going to be summoning some zombies to kind of muck down these halberds, but a lot of them still do get through, which is really going to hurt this fight for the Blood Knights. But I think the Blood Knights were definitely pretty effective so far, but I think the infantry fight and the rest of the game in that respect, like, I had 2 Hounds, 2 of the Felbats invested in harassing missile units, which is like 1,500 gold, give or take. And on top of that, just like having the Graveguard with these swords and shields and lacking the armor piercing, like, I didn't have any answers for the Greatswords and the infantry. The Blood Knights definitely weren't a bad pick, though. They were doing pretty good for themselves. So here comes another charge, just skewering these Greatswords, fighting tooth and nail to get back into this game. Still a potential for it. I mean, a lot of his forces are beat up. I still have my Blood Knights, and a lot of his cav are pretty much out of the picture, so it's certainly not over yet. And you can see the bounce power just keeps creeping back and forth. And Manfred, of course, is healthy. I can spam summons. I definitely have a lot to bring to the table here. So Manfred is going to be popping Master of the Black Arts yet again. Graveguard's still fighting. I still have 36 of them. 124 kills, though. Definitely not bad. So I guess, you know, some of them did pay for themselves, but I guess the greatswords were the big issue here. So 50 greatswords fighting here. Manfred is actually trying to hurt the caster. So we're going after the Jade Wizard, trying to do as much damage as we can. Blood Knights are going to be falling back and countercharging the Griffites again and again. Just trying to wear those guys down. So here comes another charge. It looks like the Knights of the Blazing Sun and the Griffites are going to be in a 2v1 engagement here. We'll see if the Blood Knights can pull it out. They're pretty beat up. But so are the Griffites, 605 HP, and we definitely do very well for ourselves. Those Blood Knights are just absolute pimps. 126 kills, definitely very solid stuff. In the pits, though, Manfred is fighting. He's actually able to beat the brakes off the Jade Wizard a little bit, doing some decent damage. His summon zombies are actually doing really good at just dragging down these state troops. It's going, yeah, it's not going bad. We actually do break off the Griffites as well as some of the other supporting elements. However, the Blood Knights did take a ton of damage. They're up to 130 kills. So yeah, they're in a little bit of trouble now. So they're going to be falling back right here, and they're hopefully going to be able to recharge. But it's basically just Manfred versus the world now. Manfred's going to have to fight and get the caster. I mean, he can summon troops. I think we have some Graveguard fighting. We still have 34. Now, the Graveguard aren't terrible against greatswords because of their bonus versus infantry. But again, they're certainly going to lose to the just hordes of armor piercing here. So Manfred charges in, gets a beautiful charge right there on that Jade Wizard. He's able to do some really good damage, so potentially clawing a little bit, but at this point you can see the balance of power is shifting so heavily in my opponent's favor. It's just zombies and Manfred right now, but Manfred, you know, he's letting that bald fury flow, and he put up a good fight. So very well played to my opponent. The vampire counts hath fallen this day, and I thought that replay was a really good illustration of you know, how Empire doesn't necessarily have to rely on its powder and how it can go fisticuffs. Now, if I had to change the build, this build is very old school. This is like a Warhammer 1 Vampire Counts build against Warhammer 1 Empire, where there was mostly powder weaponry and, you know, stuff like that. And I have been experiencing the Temple meme Luminarchs quite a bit, so I wanted to make sure I had stuff to chase them down. But so Blood Knights were great. I was happy with them. I'd probably keep the Sternsmen and let's see, the Fellbats. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, maybe even like cutting one of these Graveguard. You definitely need some AP now. If I had like a couple Great Weapon Graveguard, I think I could have punched through his front line and been fine. But the lack of armor piercing, and I didn't have enough like stopping power to really cut through that core with the Jade Wizard and the great swords and just all that kind of good stuff. So I think that was my big problem. But my opponent played well. He kept it high and tight, and it was definitely a fierce cockfight for sure. But yeah, so if I had to change the build, let's go ahead and we can take a look here, because I always think it's good to review these games and see what we can do different and what we can learn from it. So Manfred's still a really good choice, but you know, you could go with Vlad. Vlad's a really good like anchor. So let's mix it up a little bit. Let's get Vladdy Daddy. He's going to catch our opponents off guard. So we'll get those. He's going to be fighting in the pits, so he definitely needs some of that. You want the Sternsmen. You could definitely get like 2 of these guys, and that's probably all you need. I think you could probably just get like skeletons and other things like that. You can go with Blood Knights. You don't even have to use Blood Knights per se, but I think they're just so cool. You might as well. I still think you want a couple of Fellbats. We want to get the dire wolves too. I mean, I think just in case getting 1 dire wolf, but notice that we're cutting a dire wolf. We're getting some AP in the front line. We have Vlad as well, who's going to be pretty solid. You could even get like a black coach if you want to like cause some problems for like that style of play. But I'm trying to think of something that's like more well-rounded, because you can't just go like, now that I've seen his build, it's easy for me to build a counter to it, but you need to be kind of well-balanced for all Empire styles of play. So just kind of accounting for that as well. So a couple skeleton spears to help against cap charges and just kind of cause problems and muck things up. I definitely like that pick. On top of that, we could get the Varix Reavers. I think having another group of like Cav, and what would Hexrace be? Hexrace might actually be like a weird surprise pick that could catch those greatswords off guard. They don't have Lore of Death. You know, actually, that might not be bad. Now that I think about it, the Chillgeists, you know, that could be fun. So they do have that aura as well, which lowers speed. I mean, you could even mix in these, and then from here, you could just cut like one of the skeletons. You don't even need the skeleton spears with this type of build, I guess, because you have all the Blood Knights. So from here, you could just get like some regular skeletons just for sheer numbers. Now, I think this build could really catch someone off guard, like for sure. And do we want to cut these guys and just get some more like Fellbats or something just to help break charges? You could even get like a corpse cart, right? And just kind of march it in there. Like there's any number of things you could do. So just spend the leather, 300 on whatever you want. But you have AP in the front line. You can definitely kill greatswords. You can contend the Cav game. You have the Chill guys to attack the infantry. You can cut the Chill guys if you want to be a little bit safer. You could just get a black coach because it's cheaper and it's really good against infantry. And you could also get, let's say, another group Graveguard. So there's a bunch of different ways you could do it, but definitely bringing some more AP in the front line I think is very solid. But very well played to my opponent, Willie Toledo. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Count game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.